Good afternoon everybody. The Labour Party stands by its fiscal plan. This fiscal plan has been audited by Bill. I've just spoken with Dr. Ganesh Nana and he continues to stand by the plan. He's in Christchurch today and is in some meetings for the next hour or two, but I'm sure he'll be happy to provide any response or comment after that. I regard this as a desperate, cynical attempt by Stephen Joyce to create a diversion. These numbers have been checked, they are robust, and I refute the allegations that he's made.
So, when the government says that you haven't rolled over the operating allowances, you or haven't you?
What we've done is we've put them above the line, Bernard. So within the health and education lines that are in the fiscal plan, they represent the lion's share of money that needs to be rolled over within any year's operating allowance. We have done that. There is around about $6.7 billion worth of money for health for that, and around about $1.8 billion worth of money for that within the education line. So that's where we put them. What's left over at the end is spare cash. That is not, and I have never stated that that would have been accumulated funds.
So could you separate out what would have been in the operating allowance line and what would have been above the line for us? So that we
yes, I've just done that. So that's $6.7 billion for health, $1.8 billion for education. That's in there. That's above the line. And we've been transparent, which is something that the National Party have never been. So I challenge Mr. Joyce today to say whether or not he is going to fund health and education for inflation and demographic pressures. We've done that. It appears in the health and education lines within our fiscal plan and accumulates out. What is left at the end is spare cash. We've put it above the line. Mr. Joyce has left it below the line. The challenge for him is to say to New Zealanders whether he'll do what we've done.
So let's say you've made a spending promise in 2017-18. That's effectively in the operating allowance, and then but that for 2019 or the 2018-19 it is put above the line. It goes above the line.
That's correct. Yep. So the money. I mean, if there is a confusion here, it might be around the different use of the term operating allowance, but quite clearly for us, we have put in the spending that is required to meet the commitments that we have made.
So you said 6.7 billion is above the line?
Yes.
He says there's 9.4 billion missing.
Well, no, what he's doing is taking what is in our operating allowance, what's called our operating allowance at the bottom, and then accumulating that out. What we're saying is that number is actually an irrelevant number in terms of the accumulated spending that's required to meet our commitments. That number is above the line.
So why didn't you just use apples with apples?
It's more, I think we've come down to a debate about semantics, about the use of that term operating allowance. Our fiscal plan adds up. We're absolutely clear that we have the money to meet the commitments that we've made. What remains at the very bottom line of this, our fiscal plan document, is the spare cash that is available to a government to spend.
And that's effectively the spare cash that could be used in coalition negotiations. Is that perhaps why you put it in there like that?
I think any responsible government has money put aside for a rainy day.
So you're saying the government says that the 200 million, 300 million was accounted for in the preview.
No, that's not correct. What we've done is taken the Inland Revenue Department's advice, which is actually in the estimates, which is that for every additional dollar they are given to do work investigating tax avoidance, they will get $7 back. We're backing them to do that, and you'll see in the fiscal plan we've put additional money in for tax investigators. That's a separate line item. We're backing them to get that money on a 1-to-7 ratio return. But he's just completely wrong about that.
So essentially you're saying you're just going to get a bit tougher on taxpayers,
exactly.
So you will generate more revenue.
And this has been a consistent theme that Inland Revenue have said when they have come to select committee and to talk to government, and it's actually written within the estimates in the current budget that for every dollar you give them, they will get $7 back. We're backing them to do that.
And have you put a PPL?
Yes, we have. The paid parental leave numbers are actually directly from Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment advice that was given to the select committee when Sue Moroney's bill went through. What Mr. Joyce has completely failed to do is read all the way through that document and realise that there are offsets from the non-payment of benefits and a range of other increased tax payments that will be coming into the government. That figure is directly from MB that is included in our families package.
So what about the family package date difference, July and April, 289?
The fiscal plan has always said that our families package would come in on 1 July 2018. The website of the Labour Party did have a statement saying under the families package when it was first announced that it would be 1 April, but in terms of the numbers in the fiscal plan, they have not changed at all. It has always been 1 July 2018.
So Mr. Joyce took the numbers from the website then?
He took a date from the website. But the date in the fiscal plan has been exactly the same from when you all stood with me out in Kilburnie when it was 1 July.
How long was it on the website for?
I imagine it was there from when the original statement went up.
Mr. Joyce has had some National Party worker bees on this for a couple of days. So are you surprised that they've done so much digging?
Oh, look, I just think this is a desperate act from a flailing finance minister. What he's tried to do here is disingenuous in my view. He knows that we have accounted for our expenditure in health and education going out into future years. He's trying to, I believe, mislead the New Zealand public. I'm sure they'll see through it.
What he's saying is that you basically leave yourself with very little for things like, you know, teacher or police pay rises.
Well, no, we've made, particularly in the education area, we've accounted for inflation, we've accounted for increased costs there. Every government has to deal with different issues, different pay claims as they come along. We'll do that just as the national government has done. What we have done is been transparent with New Zealanders about the inflation pressures and the demographic pressures that there are in health and education. We've put them into our spending. I challenge Mr. Joyce, is he going to fund health and education for the cost of inflation and demographic changes? Because if he is, he needs to be upfront with New Zealanders. That's what we've done.
Can you explain in very basic terms for myself and readers the difference in approach to the operating allowance that you've talked about?
So what we've done is we've been transparent and said rather than wait to each year to say whether or not we're going to fund health or education to meet the cost of inflation and demographic growth, we've simply put that into our health and education lines that are what we say above the line. So rather than leaving that there at the bottom and saying we may or may not spend it, what Mr. Joyce has done is taken what is effectively our leftover cash at the end and then tried to accumulate that out as if we're going to spend every dollar of it every year. I've never said that. I've never said that our fiscal plan did that.
So this $11.7 billion hole that he's suggesting there is, you're saying that that's just
it's completely
fabrication?
Untrue.
Completely untrue.
So, but didn't you say there was a 6.7
for health and 1.8 for education? But again, we're not comparing apples with apples, Bernard. He's taking a line item that is actually leftover money and calling that an accumulating operating allowance. I have never said that's what it was.
So why is it on you just explain as the operating allowance?
As I said, we're down to semantics here about what is and isn't an operating allowance. I've never claimed it as anything other than the money that is left over for us to spend.
So we can all...
If you had a independent parliamentary budget office?
Yes, and that's something that in fact we've proposed.
But Mr. Joyce turned up with egg on his face, not.
Well, I just think this is a desperate act by Mr. Joyce. I think that he is trying to claim something that is simply not true. And as I say again, I say to him, New Zealanders deserve to know whether health and education are going to be funded properly by him. He needs to front up today and say whether he is going to increase it by inflation and demographic costs. We've put that above the line.
So how did you move on from the days when National were able to say that you weren't fiscally responsible? Have you moved on from the show me the money days?
We have a fiscal plan that has been independently assessed and that adds up. Now, Mr. Joyce might not agree with all of the priorities that are in that plan, and that's fine, because I think New Zealanders should be able to debate whether or not now is the time for tax cuts or now is the time to invest more in our public services. So I'm more than happy to have a debate about priorities, but not one when Mr. Joyce tries to mislead New Zealanders.
How does the finance minister So how do you deal with demographic inflation and other costs in other areas other than education and health?
And that's what we'll look at both with the money, because there is still some money available within what we've called our operating allowance. We'll also be looking for governments for departments, to reassess their spending. We will have some different priorities than the government does in those areas. And obviously we do intend to grow the economy as well and make sure that we have additional resources available. So like any government, we'll make those choices when we get into government.
So what sort of areas would be asked for more efficiencies?
Oh, look, we'll be looking right across the board for that. I mean, I've already stated before that I'm not interested, and I know this is a capital item, but I'm not interested in seeing us continue to build more and more prisons. We've already stated in the past that the defence budget's an area where we think some of the expectations there need to be managed as well. But that's what you do when you're in government. I don't have access today to all of the resources that Mr Joyce has had over the last few years. We've put out a fully costed fiscal plan that has been independently assessed, and it adds up.
So how does the Finance Minister and 3 or 4 staffers and a bunch of spreadsheets and calculators 3 weeks out from election get this so wrong?
Because Mr Joyce has deliberately chosen to misinterpret our fiscal plan. Our fiscal plan has always been clear that we are dealing with the demographic pressures and inflation and health and education transparently, and I'm using a technical term, but above the line. They always, health and education always make up the lion's share of what Mr Joyce is calling the operating allowance. He's simply misinterpreted this.
So what, this is a lazy finance from
I just think he's doing it deliberately as a diversion. It's a stunt. It's the kind of thing you do when you're desperate.
He wasn't actually talking about health and education, he was talking about the areas other than that, and saying that you have nothing left and that you will basically be calling for nil increases on those other departments.
Look, we are going to be looking for efficiencies across government, and I don't apologise for that one bit, but Mr Joyce has to then answer the question. The lion's share of what he is calling his operating allowance is actually keeping up with inflation and demographics and health and education. Is he going to do that? Because when you then do that and look at how much he's got left, it's not that much either.
So he also mentions
national's numbers need to be independently reviewed.
Well, ours have been independently reviewed. I'd like Mr Joyce to do that actually, and I'd like to see Mr Joyce provide more than just 2 sides of an A4 piece of paper for his spending commitments. I do notice that under the capital spending, all of a sudden, when it comes to the $10.5 billion that's going to be spent on roads, he initially, when that was announced, said some money would come from the capital spending allowance. That suspiciously disappeared. So yes, I think he should have his numbers independently audited, just as ours have been.
So he also mentions that further finance costs associated with extra borrowing, $580 million, are also not in your numbers.
That's not correct either. We have got a line item for additional finance costs in here. And remember, everything on that page is in addition to pre-food. So we have factored in the additional finance costs. He's now inflated them because of the other things that he got wrong today. But we have that item with our spending plan.